So I'm here as a representative of Opal School, which is a program of Portland Children's Museum in Portland, Oregon. And I'm here because it's our mission to strengthen education by provoking fresh ideas concerning environments where creativity, curiosity, and the wonder of learning thrive. And in my experience, people tend to think that that sounds really great until they happen upon this moment when they start to feel like maybe in order to support those things, they have to make some really hard choices. Like, can I give kids time to play in school? Or do I have to really focus on this learning that's supposed to be happening? And at Opal School, we've been finding that that in particular is really a false choice. And we've been finding this out by listening to the children. So I brought lots of their voices with me here today. And I want to start by sharing something that an 8-year-old named Paul once shared a few years ago. During what is a daily practice in our classrooms, a kind of open dialogue that happens every day in our preschool through 5th grade classrooms. And this class was learning about the United States Constitution. And on this particular day, they were engaged in a dialogue about the role of empathy in justice and judgment. And this is what Paul said. He said, "It's like there's 2 doors, and they both lead to hallways, and one has treasure in it, and that's good for you, and only you. The other hallway has people who are stuck in it, and they can't get out, but if you let them out, they'll be free. But you can only open one door, so the empathic decision would be to find a 3rd door." Yeah, so as you can imagine, this statement has served to inspire us ever since, that when it comes to thinking, there simply are no limitations, and we don't have to make false choices. We just have to be able to find a 3rd door. Now, Paul's in high school now, but I want to show you a picture of what he looked like when he said this that day. So he and his classmates were showing us that play and learning can happen at the same time. They were playing with ideas, using a play as a strategy to play with history. And it was Paul's playful disposition that made it possible for him to imagine and create this powerful metaphor. Because play is really the only way that anything new has ever come into this world. And a playful disposition is required for finding 3rd doors. So our approach at Opal School is our attempt at finding a 3rd door. And we call it playful inquiry. And it's more important to me today that I leave you with a feeling of playful inquiry than any perfect definition. So I brought a video, and in this video, you're going to be able to see scenes from Portland Children's Museum, including Opal School. And you're going to get to hear what one of those open dialogues sounds like. What you'll hear over the top our 4th and 5th graders talking about the wonder of learning.
When I play, my brain is inspired by what I'm doing.
When I play, my dreams of flying and stuff sort of come true.
When I play, I sort of get to know myself better.
Like when you're learning, your brain kind of goes bop, 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 because you keep on thinking more ideas. It's kind of like when you're learning, you start connecting to different things that you might want to do. Like you might want to research that thing or tell other people about it, kind of spread the news.
You're engaged in the conversation that's happening.
Sometimes when you're really excited that you're going to get to learn about this one thing that you really want to be learning to, I guess your brain goes into like a state of shock. You're like, yes, finally, I've been waiting for this all year, and you're just so excited that you don't care what you're doing during outdoor break or lunch. You're just like, oh yay, math is coming, science is coming, history is coming. Yes, I can't wait.
Your brain sort of clicks into a mode where it's only you and your work, and now and again a friend or a teacher. You just want to keep going until you're done, and then you want more.
The wonder of learning can be like so many different things. It can be a light that goes off in your head making you get it, or it can be the click mode where your brain gets it. It can be questions that you have or the excitement for when you're going to learn something else.
Well, it's kind of like the wonderful of learning, like how like wonderful it is to like learn different things, or is it like when you're wondering about what you're learning? It's kind of like an excitement and a question. But there again, you can't wait to do it, but you still have a question mark on the other side.
Oh, I get it.
It's sort of like all the things we said put together in a kapow and like summed up with everything you just learned and lighting up in your brain, putting light on something else, and it finally makes sense.
The wonder of learning is like a big puzzle trying to put each little thing that you learn into a big picture.
Well, I like to play to learn, and when I'm playing, I don't want to stop.
Playing is learning.
The wonder of learning is fun.
So that feels so good, right? It's undeniable. And the thing is, I never meet anyone who thinks that children don't deserve to have those kinds of experiences. But if I can build on the good work of Brené Brown for just a moment, I think that we get tripped up when we start to recognize that the birthplace of that kind of joy is vulnerability. And we have to realize that if we want to seek that kind of joy, we have to be willing to wade deep into conflict and uncertainty. Brené Brown says that, we can't numb just one aspect of the human condition and expect that we can retain access maybe just to the good stuff. We have to be willing to not know so that we have the opportunity to figure stuff out, because that's the kind of play that brings joy. So I think a really easy way to think about it is that just because something feels bad doesn't mean that it is bad, because feeling bad is part of the human experience, and the better equipped we are to know how to handle ourselves when we're feeling bad, the better quality of life we'll have, and the better quality of life everyone around us is going to have. So I really believe that the day that schools are willing to value not knowing and uncertainty at least as much as they value certainty, that's the day we'll all start walking towards a more sustainable future together. Recently, another third grader named Lucius let us know that it's our instinct to learn how to live. And he's right, of course. It's our instinct to learn how to live, and play evolved to help us do that. We know that all animal species have play behaviors, and that those with fewer instinctive behaviors play more. So that makes us the most playful animal. And it can be helpful to remember Brian Sutton Smith's observation that the opposite of play isn't work, it's depression. So in that same conversation about instinct, another child named Elijah said, "Yeah, but it's not our instinct to stop and think." And Lucius agreed. He said, "Yeah, because, lots of times you just think something's really fun for you and you don't think about how it might be really hurting somebody else." And I think it's important to note that Elijah cited the March from Selma as proof of her theory. She said that Martin Luther King Jr. had to have had a lot of self-control not to fight back in the face of such violence. And so it seemed like Paul, so many years before them, they also understood that if you want to find a third door, you first have to learn to stop and think. So in the beginning, our efforts to learn how to live are imperfect, because in the beginning, we don't know what to stop and think about. When we start playing and exploring, we find both literally and figuratively where the edges and the boundaries of the world are. And adult responses to our behaviors provide some of the most dangerous edges. Shame and punishment are dangerous, and we learn to avoid them. So it's our instinct to learn how to live And it's not our instinct to stop and think, but we learn very quickly that there does exist a danger zone and a comfort zone, and we spend the rest of our lives trying to navigate between those two. It's in that messy and uncertain in-between where we learn how to live. But with tragic effect, it's precisely that messy in-between that our conventional schools are built to avoid by steadily numbing the vibrancy of our curiosities and our experiences into submission. Conventional schools tell us to leave play and inquiry at the door. They teach us to distrust our most powerful learning strategy. And we're easily deluded by adults who convince us that there's a way to stay out of that danger zone of shame and punishment. We just have to do what we're told. So we learn that we have value when we do what we're told. We learn that we have worth when we produce the right answer. We pride ourselves in the rigor of the right answer and forget that that's also rigor mortis. And when that sets in, it's hard to do much of anything, let alone find third doors. But by listening to children, we can be reminded that they're there. At Opal School every fall, the oldest children take a trip, an overnight trip, to experience a ropes challenge course. And this last year, before they left on this big experience with risk, the children were asked to imagine what lived in their minds between this danger zone and comfort zone. And I want to share with you what 10-year-old Nisa created. First, she painted this picture, and then, as our habit, she wrote an artist statement, and I want to read that to you. So she's writing about the representation of the colors. And so she says the orange in that painting. That orange means that you wish you were doing better, and you have to develop courage to have more confidence in yourself. You gather yourself, and you can get calm if you have enough courage and if you're ready. She said the blue is like a calmness. To get to the calm stage, you can't be frightened, because if you're afraid, you can't calm down. The calmer you are, the less fear you have. She said the golden part is the area in your mind you have to go to get to the calm stage, where you are ready to be there for your community. And she said the green means you don't know anything. You can be excited because it's fun, and you don't have to think about everything else. You don't have to think about what you're going to be thinking about. And when we take the time to interpret Nisa's piece or other pieces like it, we have a chance to learn more about what happens when we create conditions for playful inquiry in our classrooms. It's because of the approach that we can learn from the approach. And the bad news is that, it's not something that can be replicated or implemented. There are no 10 easy ways to create this messy middle and throw the children in there and not get in there ourselves. This approach requires, we need to be in there together. Because when we do that, we have an opportunity to reflect together on what we're all gaining, what we're all learning. We learn that we have developed a comfort with uncertainty, an understanding that we don't have to think about what we're going to be thinking about. That it's great to have a plan and an intention, but we don't have to be the one with the best idea. And it's entirely possible to be right without everybody else having to be wrong. And we develop emotional intelligence, an understanding that if we want to have courage and not be afraid, then we have to calm down. We are all way too afraid of what children can't do or what they might not be able to do by the time they get to third grade. We need to calm down so we can pay attention to what they can do. And we develop a civic responsibility, which is an understanding that, in fact, we are responsible for calming down so that we can be there for our community. When we take the time to observe the impact of our practice by listening to the experiences of the children and reflecting on them, then we have the opportunity to build new theory about what we can do together in school. And we've found, by going through these reflective processes for the past 15 years, that in this messy in-between lives the powerful intersection of agency and empathy. It's the place where you can sustain your own instinct to learn how to live and grow a willingness and an ability to stop and think about the fact that everybody else has the right to do the same, adults and children. When adults choose to empathize with the experience of, or the struggle of becoming human, they have the opportunity to stand in solidarity with young human beings who are trying to learn how to live in an uncertain world where everyone else has a right to do the same. When we model empathy, we nurture empathy. And we have these opportunities in every moment. I want to share one last story with you. It's a very personal story for me, because that little girl in the middle, that's my daughter, Stella. And she was 4 years old. She's in 3rd grade now, but that's also her very dear friend Ruby on the left. And I'll never forget the day that Stella came home after having met up against one of those really dangerous edges in her preschool classroom that can happen in the doll corner when everybody wants to be the mommy. And so she came home this day, and I was very surprised because she looked up at me. We were taking a walk. She looked up at me and she said, "Mommy, I had an oopsie moment today." She said, "I punched my friend Ruby," which was an oopsie, because at Opal School we don't punch. But while I was sitting on the bench, my brain just did something magical. I just thought, there can be 2 mommies. And everything snapped together. And I can't really even tell you how powerful a moment this was for me, because I thought back to the beginning of Opal School when our founder, Judy Graves, told us that blame would not be a strategy that we would use at Opal School. And I remember it was a revelation, and it was a challenge, because as much as I thought that was a great idea, I didn't understand at all how it could happen. And here was my own daughter coming home after school, after having had this opportunity to find out that her mistake wasn't the end of the world. In fact, it was the beginning of her opportunity to find out that if she takes the time to stop and think, her brain has enough magic in it to be able to find 3rd doors. And I know that it's typical for parents to overinflate the intellectual capacity of their children, but it took our US Supreme Court several more years to figure that out. Yeah, so I think that that's because, as an adult society, we have mostly been anesthetized to the power and the magic of our own brain. We've been deluded by this myth of the comfort zone, compartmentalized our lives behind boundaries that we're afraid to cross and that we shame others for trying. We don't practice and model self-control, we just practice and model control. We regularly caution against curiosity and we delegitimize play. But we don't have to make that choice. We call for a set of 21st century skills that children already possess when they walk through the school door, and we set on a course that systematically destroys them. But we don't have to make that choice. Because children arrive with an understanding that there's a strength in this playful disposition that gives them all the power they need to be able to open 3rd doors, and we can choose to help them do it. Thank you.